Manuel to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This amendment clarifies the discussion of the various forms of discrimination and systematic inequalities are permitted. I know that some people say that it's already in the bill. This is just trying to clarify to make sure that it's evident and clear. We're just making sure that this is evident and clear. The reason that I'm asking this, I think, is that since we're making a drastic change to our education system that has not been changed in this way, I think this is just a safe way to make sure that everyone knows what we're doing, why we're doing it, but also to make sure, more importantly, that people can still have the same discussions on campus.
Mr. Busey, for what purpose?
Yield for some questions.
The gentleman yield for questions.
I do.
The gentleman yields.
Representative, just to clarify, what you're doing with this amendment is guaranteeing that it's still free speech based, that curriculum is not being hit, that we can teach history, teach facts, teach what's going on. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And you've been told by the bill author that this is protected, but you want to make sure that it's spelled out in the
Yes, the author says that he believes that it's in the bill. I just am asking if we can just clarify and make sure that our
bill author
universities
thinks it's
know.
already in there.
Right.
We're doubling down, making sure that this happens.
Right, exactly.
Well, it's a good amendment. Let's make sure it gets on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The chair recognizes Mr. Kemple in opposition to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respectfully oppose this amendment. This bill does nothing to instruction or curriculum. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Mr. Manuel to close on the amendment.
Mr. Speaker and members, I'm just going to say it just like this. I think it's very important. Those who do not know the history are doomed to repeat it. Women's suffrage, how we have moved so far to make sure that we have protected adults with intellectual disabilities, the very criminal justice reform work that we've done here in this body. All I'm asking is making sure that on university campus that students, professors, everyone on campus knows exactly what they are still able to talk about. When we're making big changes like this, when we've made them to different pieces of legislation, we have always complained that when we're making changes this drastically at a whim, when we know people do not always pay attention to what's happening here in this body, if we're not doing that, we could be leaving a gap where people are not going to know what they can talk about. And all this is just clarifying is saying, please allow us to be able to let people know they still have their right to free speech. History is not being blocked. Let's remember this, more importantly, that I always tell people that some people don't know. One of the worst massacres of lynchings in this country happened in California, and it was to Chinese immigrants. And it was all because of false information. Because someone thought that they had murdered a sheriff's officer and a worker in the late 1800s. How many of us are going to be able to make sure that something like that doesn't happen if we're not ensured that we can talk about certain things? I don't want to take much of your time. I know that everyone's tired and people are confused and they're already set in stone, but please, please, I am desperately asking you, history is the most important thing that if we lose it, if people fear to talk about it, then we lose everything that we hold of value. I move passage.
Mr. Manuel sent an amendment. The amendment is not acceptable to the author. The question occurs in the adoption amendment. This is the record vote. The clerk will ring the bell. So Mr. Manuel voting aye, Mr. Kemple voting nay, Mr. Ashby voting nay, Mr. Dayala voting nay, Ms. Swanson voting nay. Have all members voted? There being 58 ayes and 83 nays, the amendment fails to adopt.